Good evening, one and all. It is me, the Whiskey Novice, back with you once again, standing in for our Roy for this week's VPub. Roy has another couple of weeks off yet, so while it's fresh in my head, next week will be straight down to New Zealand. And first, Phil. Phil will be doing next week's stand-in VPub, and then the following week, Roy's back. That'll be the 28th. So next week, 21st, then the 28th. That's that bit of housekeeping. That's us up to date there. Tonight, we are going to look at the senses. I'm afraid I'm not wearing that top hat that was in the image. There were quite a few people hoping that I would be adorned as I was in the thumbnail for this video. Of all the hats I own, a top hat ain't one. So that wasn't happening. The subject tonight, this subject, I'm gonna hit on this now quickly while I remember, once again, while it's fresh in my head. Where did this originate? Where did this plan, senses and sensibility, where did it originate from? A couple of sources, actually. One of them I will get to much later. The other one, and I may not remember at the time to say that it was part of the reasoning why I decided to do this live stream, why the subject. Excuse me. But one of the main reasons and the first reasoning for this senses and sensibility, and it's the senses. It's literally what our senses do. 5 main senses I'm going to be talking about. Sight, and this is pretty much the order I'm going to hit them: sight, touch or feel, hearing, smell, and taste. And this was sort of in a roundabout way triggered by a comment or a conversation I had with our good friend Tony Kane, the North Coast drummer. Many moons ago now, Tony said to me one day, we were out having a beer, and he said to me, I would like to know the process by which you come up with your tasting notes. And the last live stream I did a few weeks ago, I'm not going to get it out here again because I've got stuff sitting packed around it. My file, my great big lever arch file full of tasting notes over the last 6 years. How do you come about, he was asking the question, I would like to see a video of how you come about your tasting notes. Well, it never happened, but it's sort of, to a certain extent, spurned what we're doing here tonight. Senses, the sensibility bit. Yeah, I don't know whether sensibility will actually play into what I'm talking about, but it's more so about our senses. So that is the plan for tonight. And if you're willing and daring or stupid enough to hang around until later, our good friend Menno will hopefully be in to host another one of his incredibly difficult, I'm saying incredibly difficult quizzes. Menno sent me through the quiz. I have the quiz sitting in the background, but I'm hoping that he'll be in to host it himself. If that's the case, I play no part in it other than taking part. But I have not, and I can promise you this, I have not looked at the questions. I literally made sure it worked. That was it. So either way, even if I end up having to sort of host the quiz because Menno is working, either way, I will still sort of be taking part. Let's get into the chat for a moment, and we'll have a quick scan through the chat before we hit our first sense. I think that would be the way to do this. We'll break it down that way. Too slow was in too early, very early. Good to see you, Frank. So it's never a party unless Frank's there. Tobias, always good to see you, Tobias, in as well. Graham Young. Graham, I hope you're doing well. I know you're in recovery from a hip replacement, so I hope all is going well there. Jimmy Jazz, good evening to the Highland Battalion, barflies, and whiskey folk everywhere. The Highland Battalion don't get mentioned enough here, and I know Jimmy's a sort of badge-wearing member, we will say, of the Highland Battalion, so great to see you in, Jim. Let me see, scrolling down, an awful lot of people. Thomas Jones, new name to me, but I'm sure obviously well known around here. Sugar Kitty, good to see you, and always good to see you. And Tim Powell's is another new name to me, but I'm sure an awful lot of you probably know this name. Whiskey with Molly, Ben, good to have you in. Whiskey and Wine Trails, Tom, also good to have you in. Scott Mathiasen, my friend from across the water, but now living here. I will try and get into the chat as we're going along and actually, read. I'm just scanning over to say hello at the moment, but I will get in. Stephen Thompson, my friend Stephen, good to see you. Greg's Whiskey Guide, always good to see you. And Scott Allen, I will, as I say, get into Michael Henry. Michael, thank you for joining in, sir. It's always good to have a bit of, what I would say, expert knowledge in the chat. That's not to say that you aren't all experts, but, where's Roy? Black Fan, Highland, Hamish, you are busy on the golf course these days. It's always great to see that. Always love to see your posts on the social media. Julian Rickman, I know that name, but I don't know you. So good evening. Let me see. Jeff Whiskey. Jeff, I honestly thought Jeff would have been in doing another little live stream at some point of this, but not at the moment. Whiskey Liberation Front, Lee J. Hey, Highlands. Always good to see Lee J. And Fernando, I said it the last live stream I did. I know most of you people in the chat by name. I don't know an awful lot of you. I don't know all of you personally. And I know that most of you are barflies. I know that you would be tuning in for the VPub. So it does my heart good to know that you're here watching me blethering for a change. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. Derek McGrainer, I think that's David W. Rick Johnson, I maybe mentioned already. Papa Q, the last time you were in, your name always escapes me. Anyway, I'll not embarrass you or myself. Thank you for hosting this VPub, Jim. It's always a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. It was a pleasure the last time. It's a pleasure tonight again. Greg's Whiskey Guide. What was the previous 12-year-old? Is it one of the disco cows? I'm almost tempted to go back to see. Great, Michael Henry. I'm excited to see the Glen Scotia 12-year-old back. By the way, received the newsletter, and guess what? I still have a bit of the previous one, the 12-year-old release. So well, there you go. So that's what Michael and Greg are talking about. Was it one of the disco cows? I didn't pick up on this release yet of this Glen Scotia 12-year-old because I'm currently still sort of buying at the minute for reviewing purposes. And at the moment, it'll probably not fit, it'll not fit into what I'm doing currently, put it like that. But, I'll probably, at the price that's out there at, I probably will end up picking it up. Tom Franey, Drew from AZ, greetings, Jim. Great for you to help out again during Roy's break. As I said, Drew, an honour, and thank you for joining in, buddy. It's always a pleasure to have you in. Big Poor Neil's in, another one of the Highlands. So I think we're getting there. It's good to see so many in there. Arnie Tiger, so many in and so many having a good chat. There, that's us down. That's me caught up. Thankfully. So the senses. I'm on a warm up here while we're talking. Warm with drinking. It's a little sample I was giving you yesterday. It's the latest Clonakilty pot still Irish whiskey. Maybe I'll just take time to settle into my palate a bit. I've had better pot stills, although it is getting better. First thing I'm going to talk about, the first sense. As I said, 5 main senses: sight, touch, feel, hearing, smell, taste. And the first one we're going to look at is our eyesight. Now, yet again, this is one of the reasons why because it depends on, I'm convinced it first off depends on where we're at on our journey as to which part or which sense tends to get used most, tends to get leaned on most. And this is now talking from experience, from working in the whiskey shop, plus my own experience. as through my own whiskey journey, because I would suggest in the whiskey shop, still sell more bottles based on them being eye-catching than we do based upon the liquid in the bottle. And I would suggest that the reason for that is that most people are buying for gifts. They're buying because they're maybe early on in their journey. They're more so gifts, definitely, maybe early on in their journey. And it's this early on in your journey thing that I'm sort of focusing on. All of us, started drinking whiskey somewhere. Of course we did. I would probably suggest that most of us buy with the eye early on, as the comment goes, because we don't really know an awful lot about the whiskey itself at the time. We don't necessarily care about the things that we care about now. And when I say now, as more experienced whiskey enthusiasts. So I'm just going to pop in while I remember here from Michael Henry, very true. You have about 10 seconds to attract a potential buyer with a pack. Gifting a big part of that, why cartons are still important as naked bottles hard to gift. Agreed. 100%, Michael, 100%. And I know, we have on our shelves in the shop about 350 odd, and we'll say odd, around 350 different Irish whiskies. How do you appeal to a new buyer? You make it glaringly exciting. It's the excitement, appeal. The bottle has to have appeal. I've pulled out quite a few bottles that are sitting beside me here out of my cabinets, and I could have easily pulled out an awful lot more or different ones, but it's I didn't want to drag them all out. I've got, there's reasons why I've picked them out. Of course, you start to juggle the book by the cover, or judge the book by the cover. Sorry, Frank, until you know what your eyes can betray you. And this is the thing: a new buyer doesn't care if it says on the label non-aged, or it doesn't say on the label non-chill filtered, natural color. New people to whiskey don't know what that means. Rick Johnson, as a retailer, do you give the first nod to the color or the label? Rick, I really struggle as a whiskey enthusiast. I struggle far too much, actually. Alistair McPhail's in. Good to see you, Alistair. Because as a whiskey enthusiast, I genuinely, and I actually meant to borrow a bottle out of work today and forgot it on the way. I left in a hurry and forgot to bring it. And when I say borrow it, it was just one of these, all I can describe glorious labels, fancy shaped bottles as all fur coats and no knickers. It's a statement that we have here. All fur coat and no knickers basically means that it's, it's all the packaging, but there's nothing underneath. So I struggle with bottles like that when it comes to customers, because all I want to tell is the truth. All I want to be is honest about the whiskey. If the bottle looks glaringly, blingy, and I literally am just going, well, look, it's obviously if the bottle has to look like that, the whiskey that's inside it generally isn't going to be that good, I find personally. Michael Henry said it a moment ago, and he's 100% right. Packaging still has to be on point to win a buyer. We certainly, for gifting, if it comes naked, one of the questions we'll be asked, does that come in a box? No. They tend to glide off that. That's the point whenever we're stepping in and going, but look, it should be about the whiskey, really. I'm going to say, I don't know why I'm picking this one out. It was just one memory I had in particular of a lady coming in to buy, she was quite a young lady coming in to buy a bottle for her father. And my father's a whiskey enthusiast. And yet again, she got drawn into this. And the bottle that I was going to borrow, and I should have even just thrown up a picture of it, but forgot. You can look it up. It's called Mayloag, Mayloag. It's Gaelic, translates to stands out from the crowd. And it's from the old Carrick Mill distillery. And it's a little 50 cl bottle, molded, shaped, and little horns for a stopper. And she get attracted to this bottle. And I'm saying, look, is your father a whiskey enthusiast? Does he enjoy whiskey? Oh, yes, my father loves whiskey. Well, then he's not going to give a damn what that bottle looks like. If he cares about whiskey, he do not care what the bottle looks like. In fairness, she said, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. We'll see. Hi, Hamish. I did a tasting in March. Favourite dram of the day was a James 80 Glen Ord, but half the folk who voted admitted they wouldn't have picked it off the shelf due to the boring label. Hamish, most of the bottles I've picked out that are sitting beside me here, I'll do one. Let's start. And this is one, these guys. So the way I'm going to look at this, so this is that boutique whiskey company. This one's a little Glenburgie 8-year-old. I think this is class, personally. I mean, yes, it could come. There's a bit of a difficulty in the sale of this, in that it's a 50 cl bottle and not a 70 cl. But I just think it's eye-catching. However, I think it's eye-catching as a whiskey enthusiast. If I were new to whiskey, maybe not. Perhaps not. I'm going to go one further. Anybody who lives outside of the UK and Ireland maybe doesn't know of a supermarket chain we have, Tesco. Tesco, a supermarket chain, as I said, they at one point, I don't think they do it anymore. They had this sort of Tesco brand, their own Tesco's own. This is the label that this came off. This label is based on that Tesco brand. They all had that same blue and the red highlight packaging. I would have loved to have seen this in Tesco shelves. Would it have shifted? Not a chance. Nobody would have bought it, because they would literally look at this and say, well, no, it's cheap whiskey. Peter Morris, I suppose your point is proved by the Thompson brothers. Less so in their rather stunty balls, but especially in their mystery malts range. In the mystery malts range, exactly, just a question mark. Actually, Peter, I hadn't read that before this came up, so I don't know whether, or maybe that already brought this ball out. But Thompson brothers, to me, are a perfect example, and this is a great example of it. As a whiskey enthusiast, I thought this was brilliant. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it proved the very point that we don't care what the label says. Apart from that bit, it says Thompson Brothers. That's almost a guarantee for quality nowadays. The label would leave this sitting on the shelf to a new buyer. We all know this wasn't an expensive whiskey. This could be easy talked up by a whiskey enthusiast. We do talk about this. We do know it was good whiskey. It's just not appealing to a new buyer. What does a new buyer want then? A new buyer wants something appealing. A new buyer wants recognition. They want to be able to recognize what they're buying. Yes, I still have a liter bottle of Jameson in my collection somewhere. I think my sister bought me this at one point. Who did I just see in there? Craig Blair, good to see you. Another Highland. But it's recognition. It's simple. We know that this is marketing blurb. You and I know that this is all marketing blurb. A newcomer, a newbie, a consumer is more interested by things such as this, triple distilled. Because as we all know, triple distilled is smoother. You have no idea how many times I hear that. Day and daily. Irish whiskey's better because it's triple distilled. Newcomers, consumers believe this. You know, so it's at this point, I'm sort of led back to what we're always saying. It's a bit of evangelism then. It's about us, not, I wouldn't say an RC about it to put them straight, but it's something simple that we can do. We can you know, put, not necessarily by putting people straight, but just a nudge in the right direction. As a gift buyer, it's not going to matter. If somebody comes into our shop and asks for a bottle of Jameson, we send them to Tesco. We send them to the supermarket. Don't buy Jameson off us. We'll be charging you more for it. And rarely, weirdly, people don't buy Jameson because it's just Jameson. Bushmills is just Bushmills. It doesn't matter what sort of fancy label it comes at. Tom, my friend, seed money for Jim's top hat GoFundMe campaign. Thanks for filling in. Tom, thank you, my friend. If I show up in a top hat the next time round, well, I'd be impressed. Peter Morris, Whiskey Novice, but surely that ball is just skipped on me. Surely that ball is stunty enough to attract us enough for the novelty value over what's actually in the ball. I didn't check to see what it tasted like before I bought that. Well, agreed. I mean, I do agree with you, Peter, but it's one of those things that I do think, once again, that Thompson Brothers, it says Thompson Brothers in the label. We as whiskey enthusiasts listen to each other, and we'll get to that. We will get to that point. What other bottles did I dig out here? Simple. We're talking simple. I mean, look, it doesn't get much more simple than that. How do you sell that to somebody? Well, nobody's actually, let's face it, consumers aren't buying this anyway. This, to me, is a level of skill on the Kilkerran and Gangaia's behalf by going, look, well, let's just cut down on the marketing blurb and just give them all the information that's required. The ABV, there'll be legalities that they have to follow, but the rest of it doesn't matter. Greg's Whiskey Guide with the new temperance, skip the game, with the new temperance safety fashion. Not that I encourage unresponsible drinking. We might get almost totally on labels. It's happening, Greg. It's being introduced in Europe. This, you know, and it's literally going to say on the bottles, practically going to say whiskey kills. You know, it's nearly as bad as that. Drew from AZ has shared it for the top hat. Again, I'm not buying a top hat, but thank you. It all goes into the Whiskey Fund, guys, and the listener is very, very much appreciated. Cheers, Drew and Tom. The American leg of the Highland Battalion. So we do, and I noticed Frank said it earlier on, our eyesight still plays in, because we are still going to look at the label. We're still going to look for those little pointers. ABV, natural color, non-chill filter. Those are ticking the right boxes for us. But think about this. Even ABV, damn it, because I actually do have a bottle somewhere hidden away and I should have had it out, which proves this very well. Let's just go with this one again. No, let's not, because it's not on there anywhere. Too clear to see. Well, let's, you know, no. I don't have, do I have a bottle sitting out that I dragged? Yes, look there. This is an old black bottle. 40% here. 40% 80 proof. You put a bottle that says 80 proof beside a bottle that says 40% ABV, and people will buy the one that says 80 proof. Let's get lit. Let's get absolutely hammered. We'll buy the 80 proof one. Are they stupid? No, it's clever marketing. It's just clever marketing. I sometimes, to a certain extent, have to applaud it, but yeah, for the most part, I'm it's sort of it is technically stupidity on the people that are buying these things. This is the sort of stuff that we're looking out for. At that point, it's being marketed toward. I hate to say it, it does sound a bit, up on my horse here about, to say the stupid, but honestly, we see it done. We see it happen. The one that I was thinking of, Born Irish, it's a sort of stout infused Irish whiskey, literally has in massive writing across the front of the bottle, 80 proof, huge writing, 80 proof. That's what happens, people. You set that beside a bottle that says 40% ABV, and people will buy the 80 proof because they're going to get drunk on it quicker than they will on the 40%. Eyesight remains important in bottle selection. I believe it still does, but less important, I would suggest, than other senses. I definitely think it becomes less important than other senses. I haven't just sort of rounded eyesight off there because we'll continue to talk about what plays into what we see, what we're looking at. The next sense, and this sort of then adds in. I wrote some notes down, and I actually have it down as sight and feel, sight and touch. I would suggest, saying that Rick Johnson, should this discussion give us a sense of what's in Menno's quiz tonight? I don't know. I genuinely don't know, Rick, because I don't know what he has put in. I think maybe, but I don't know whether anything that I'm saying will play into it. Sight and touch, I've got an awful lot of bottles left out for this. Tactile. We take our eyesight away from us, right? God forbid, obviously. But take our eyesight away from us, and I would suggest that we would know a bottle just from the feel of it. I literally was grabbing bottles out of the cabinet, and I remember saying, so this is, I mean, simply, if you were hugging this bottle, you would say, well, either Glenfiddich, possibly Grant's, but I don't think Grant's flares out the bottom like that. So it's where's Roy? Sir, thank you very much. Who's Roy? The substitutes are doing well. Listen, my friend, thank you. Hopefully see you in November again. Peter Morris has mentioned Arran 10. I did mean to drag out an Arran. Arran are the only, not the only, but one of the only distilleries with a label with Braille on it. Since once Arran rebranded, I meant to grab a bottle of it. I thought about it this morning when I was lying in bed and then forgot about it again. And the bottle actually has Braille on the label. I say they're not the only one, because the other one who do it, who pretty much, I would suggest, plagiarized Arran, is the rebranding of the Irishman from Walt Whiskies, not Walt Whiskies. Didn't mean that. No. Walsh Whiskies, Bernard Walsh, here in Ireland at the Irishman. And if you look at a newer branding bottle of the Irishman, very, very close to the Arran bottles and Braille on the label. As I say, I would nearly suggest that it was plagiarized. The square bottle and the 24-degree angle of the Johnny Walker bottle was marketing genius back in the late 1800s, instantly recognizable. That's the thing, Tom. This was done for a reason. It really was. Highland Hamish just DM'd me to ask where Roy is. Hamish, cheers, my friend. Well, I will definitely see you in November. I'm just deciding whether to wear the kilt or not. But no, this is, you know, we very, very instantly know by the feel of a bottle. I've said loads of bottles out that factor into this. And turn it. I mean, to me, bottle shape, a bottle is a vessel. It's a vessel to get the stuff inside it from them to me. I have said it many, many, many times, and I repeat it almost every time I'm doing a tasting. I will drink whiskey out of a shoe if the whiskey's good. I don't care generally what the bottle's like. However, and I sort of mentioned this earlier on, if the whiskey's good and it's in a nice bottle, well, then the bottle's a bonus. Lalique. I mean, you don't really get much better glass makers. Well, I'm not into the glass really, but I mean, I would suggest that Lalique are a very, very well-known glass maker. And I mean, to own a distillery then and put out fantastic whiskey as it is, but you would know, you could certainly narrow this down to what it is. Rick Johnson, here's to wear the kilt fund. Well, Rick, I appreciate that, my friend. Probably won't need much encouragement. I haven't worn the kilt enough this year, but there's a good chance it will be in Glasgow this year. Drinking whiskey out of a shoe, that's where the leathery notes come from, Frank. Tactile. They need, to me, to a certain extent, that's clever. That's clever. I'm literally firing out bottles now. Well, you were bringing the Skyline Battalion, Jim. I've never forgotten that, Alistair McPhail. What is it you call yourselves? The Skylians? There'll be a few there's quite a few of the Highlands coming over this year. This, my good friend Bud Jenkins gifted me this at a time. That's just a thing of beauty. And once again, I can say what I want, really. It's only an opinion, but without my eyesight and without my sense of touch and feel, I wouldn't know how beautiful that is. I feel such an awful, awful pity for anybody who's lost any of their senses. I genuinely do, and more on that later. It's something that we take for granted, and it's something that I've thought about in the process of building this sort of chat tonight. Was, how much, and this is the whole idea, this is what I'm talking about, how much we take for granted our senses. And I'm not being preachy about it. I'm not, at the end of the day, I understand it. But just to be able to look at a thing like this and feel a thing like this, I just think, Sugar Kitty Willet Pot still sells the balls but can give away the whiskey. The thing about it is, you're right, it's not by any means one of the better bourbons. There's one of you, I know there'll be at least one person in the chat here will go, I don't care, it's bourbon. But I've said it many times before, I still like a good bourbon. The late Waterford. Once again, I don't care what anybody says. I think this is a thing of beauty. I think, that where they were going, but given Mark Rainier's history and wine, like the glass stopper, which I'm struggling to open now, even it, beautiful, tactile, lovely feel, lovely, and this actually brings me back to another thing. This is fantastic looking. This feels fantastic. It's a bugger to get onto a shelf. You sort of want to have it on display somewhere, but at the same time, we all want to have bottles on display somewhere. Once again, if I had my way, bottles would all be sort of this height and shape. If I had my way, every bottle would be this sort of height and shape. Simply, it's a selfish thing, because I just, even this, because they fit together. Some very striking bottles out there. Waterford, rest in peace. Glenmorangie, Boan. And funnily, I've a bottle of Boan sitting over my shoulder here. the Boan bottle actually looks relatively simple. On the shelf, it doesn't look like much. But when you pick it up, when you hold it up to the light, when, you know, it's the, what's the other one? Rasse. I have a bottle there somewhere. Rasse is another one. I'm saying it again, that I don't, you know, I don't really care that much about a bottle feel or look or whatever. But at the same time, when we come across a good one, when a genuinely modern quality bottle, then you know, you just know it stands out. A positive tactile impression builds a strong connection with the whiskey, even on a subconscious level. Weight of a bottle and shape are big influences. I agree again, Michael. And weirdly, I don't know, just you saying that, weight, I mean, what is going on? I never figured out what was going on with the Shackleton. That's what I was trying to remember the name of it. The Shackleton bottle. Has anybody ever had a bottle of the Shackleton? I don't know what the hell sort of fat ass glass that's made out of, but it weighs a ton. I don't get it. For what's a relatively simple blend. This isn't Crown Royal. I was hoping Jimmy Legg would have been in tonight because I would have been in for a bit of stick here. This isn't Crown Royal. This is, and I'll actually get the timing wrong because what I will do is drag this out again. This is actually a 2 litre, what I had was a 2 litre cask of just a little empty 2 litre cask, little charred 2 litre cask, seasoned with port for a short period of time. Remember, it was only a 2 litre cask. And then it was actually Finlagan cask strength that went into this, that went into that cask after it had been seasoned. Where's Roy saying, should I wear my kilt at the Glasgow Whisky Festival? The weight of the kilt would mean one whiskey bottle less than that's the issue that I'm having, Roy, is the kilt is getting it to Scotland, because as you say, it's the weight of these things and then getting them back, because I don't want, if you wear the kilt on the flight, etc., every bit of metal in that kilt's just going to set off every metal detector in the bloody place. So that's the issue that I'm sort of having as to whether to bring it or not. Aqua Vitae. Oh, Roy, hiya, Whiskey Novice, and everyone watching on TV tonight in the BG, hoping to settle it a bit later with you all. Thank you, Jim, for taking care of us. Not at all, Roy. And listen, thank you very, very much, sir. Thank you for asking me. Thank you for that generous add into the whiskey fund. So that's what this is. It's actually Finlagan cask strength. So it's peated, finished in port. Far superior to what was in this bottle originally, let me tell you. This is a good example of what I was saying about earlier on. All fur coat and no knickers. However, tactile, yes. And, you know, even presentation-wise, even for the consumer, the new guy, the gift buyer, you know, this comes in a velvet bag, and the velvet bag's inside a cardboard box. Once again, to you and I mean, if you've ever had Crown Royal, the standard Crown Royal, you'll know, like I, that it's crap. An awful thing to say, but it's not great. But that bottle, and sometimes I look at it and go, well, why go to the effort of putting average whiskey into what is, you know, it's still quite eye-catching. It's certainly memorable. It's certainly saying what we've already discussed. What we've said is, what do you want your bottle to be? You want it to be eye-catching. You want it to come in some sort of wrapping that's going to be appealing to the gift buyer, or even to the newcomer. And yet again, these are the people that, you know, they're probably new to Crown Royal, so they'll not necessarily know whether it's a good whiskey or a bad whiskey. But you know, it's certainly, and it's memorable. You know, when you look at that, you would know if you felt that it was a Crown Royal bottle. I want to get. This is all I have left of this. So it wasn't all 2 litres of. I wasn't able to get all 2 litres out of it. Because it would have meant buying more Finlagan at the time, and I wasn't able to get it. I can't remember what happened. But this as I say, I was actually quite proud of it, to be honest with you, because it's peated, cask strength peated whiskey with a port cask finish on it. The only problem, I'd never even thought that, I'm going a bit early on the peated whiskey. In their individual parts, Finlagan cask strength, very much lacking something, I thought. Put it into a 2-litre cask, seasoned with port, and you've added that thing in that was missing. The port that came out of the cask, I still have some of it, and it was incredible. Yet again, a very simple port, which I'm not a huge fan of, but literally at 2 weeks it was 2 weeks or 2 months. It was 2 something it got in just cask. And the wood element that it added just enough oak just to brighten up that port. So I'm going to have to drag this a little here, because I've made another mistake. I've rushed ahead of myself. Yes, that's what I was going to talk about. Another bottle, I think, back to what I was saying earlier on, all for a coat, no knickers. When I see these bottles, and this is another good example for me, when I say, look, if the whiskey's decent and it comes in a nice bottle and the price isn't too high and the bottle is, well then, give it a shot. An awful pourer, we know that. I mean, this spills every time you pour it. It's clever, but it's clever to a point. It's clever to the point where until you start pouring it and you end up wasting most of it. They are redeveloping the bottle in this, so it was so clever, but they've obviously over clevered themselves. But look, clever marketing once again. Bushmills produces the Sexton. Where's Bushmills? It's a stone's throw away from the Giant's Causeway. That's what this is based upon. It's basically the Giant's Causeway stones. Clever marketing, clever looking thing, reasonably decent whiskey, 4-year-old malt, fully matured in Oloroso. Yeah, bottled at 40%. Okay, chill filtered, color, etc. But still, I think, given the option between this and the May Logue that I was talking about earlier on, I'd take this all day long. And this is the one that, when people do gravitate toward the May Logue that I was discussing earlier on, this is the one that I'm saying, look, steer in a different direction. Another thing that people are going to be grabbed by, newcomers, is an age statement. It's still, it's still an easy marketing ploy to put an age on there. Yet again, it depends on what way you go about it. This is a poor looking thing and a poorly marketed thing and a poor label and a poorly shaped bottle. Over my shoulder, and I haven't got them lit up tonight, is their original powers, what they look like. And they just, this I still think's awful. But it's a good example of who cares, as long as the juice inside it remains the same. And this is a good example for me when purchasing and when selling. We tell people this. I actively tell people this. I'll get asked the question, Dan Daly, I don't know what to buy, what's your favourite? This is generally where I go. Because bang for buck, it's still probably my favourite Irish whiskey. I then point to an older, but we still have a single cask, which a single cask powers, which is the old shape bottle over my shoulder here. And I explained to people, look, it was a much more glamorous looking thing than this, but every distillery rebrands at some point. They nearly all do it. They sort of have to, I would suggest. You got to keep it bright. You got to keep it fresh. So this is that. This is modelled on the old stills down at the Johns Lane Distillery in Dublin. And that's what this is. So it's supposed to be the shape of the still. It was the bricked up stills, and then you only seen the top of the direct fired stills. I don't like it, but as I say, to me, it doesn't matter. And this is when explained, if you can take somebody to one side and you can say, look, here's what's important. It clearly states on the label, non-chill filtered. 12 years old, the age statement, not terribly clear. They're not really making a big point out of it, but it's there. Yes, I have to go into the explanation of, the maturation. 11 years, first and second fill bourbon, another year Oloroso, bottle at 46%, probably natural color, non-chill filter, pot still whiskey. Most weirdly, this is the point when the consumer starts to listen. This is the bottle that I've sold most of, that I wouldn't suggest converted people, but I've certainly said to them, look, forget how it looks. From my point of view, it's an ugly thing, because they're also looking at it and going, I don't like the look of it. I'm buying this for myself, or I'm gifting this for someone. Yes, it comes in a tube, but I mean, so what? But this is the point where people then start to sway and go, well, do you know what? If you like it so much, I'll give it a go. And generally you find people come back and go, do you know, you've opened my eyes about something. And this is where, it's something that I said it earlier on, I can't help myself. I have to be honest with people. It's just something in me. And that honesty then is leading me toward telling them, look, forget about what the bottle looks like. Yes, it might be appealing. Yes, I mean, that's a good example of it. Appealing looking, good whiskey in the bottle. 34-year-old grain was another one I've dragged out earlier on. 34-year-old grain. This was £75 a bottle. That's a thing of beauty. This bottle will be kept. 75 quid. 34-year-old grain. Fantastic. So if it's got elements all building up and breaking up on top of each other, sometimes, if you've sort of an idea that the whiskey in there is going to be good as well, brilliant. What a miss. I did see some chat. Roy's in, evening everyone, completely beautiful how the Thursday nights have been kept going while I take my lazy spell. Well, listen, enjoy it, my friend. Man, it's horrible typing on the phone from the sofa. It really is. That's part of my issue in the V-pubs of a Thursday night, that I generally struggle sitting there trying to keep up with the chat, and I'm actually in most cases missing what's being said. Because this is the other thing. This is, and I'm seeing Michael Henry said something there about, metal stock or stuff like that there. You can bet that, your marketers that price creeps up along with all of that packaging. Of course it does. So we then, the enthusiasts, are saying, well, look, keep the packaging and we'll just buy the bottle with the whiskey. That's all we want. Obviously, that can't happen because you have to appeal to everybody across the board. Michael's in here. I'm not just saying this because Michael's in here. Loch Lomond are another great example of somebody who rebranded recently, and I actually prefer the new bottle. There's something more, yet again, there's something more tactile about it. It's a heavier, chunkier bottle. There was nothing wrong with the old ones, but just the new ones just got that bit more heft about it, and it feels better. It looks better. They look neat. I love the cleanliness of the distillery exclusives. All lined up, just look cracker, and they look even better, people, when the whiskey level's down on them a bit. So get it in the. Fernando, agree with you on the Powers look, but I'm sure they can do better. They'll not do better for a long time, I would imagine. The Powers will stay the way it is, I would think. There's a couple of reasons behind that. Powers just isn't doing as well. Now, the thing about it is, I only learned this fairly recently. So here's a little inside. Maybe it's not. Maybe you already knew this one. But when Jameson and Powers fell under IDL, around that time or sometime later, it was decided that Jameson would be the brand which would be marketed internationally, which it was. It did really well. The biggest selling Irish whiskey in the world currently, and I can't see that changing. And Powers would be the one that would be marketed more toward the domestic market. So generally you find that most people, certainly not talking about enthusiasts, because we listen to each other, we'll talk about that later, and we know what, we've got a feel for what's out there. Generally, and this is the one thing that I do struggle with, that when I'm trying to do the sell on this as my favorite Irish whiskey bang for buck, and people are going, but I've never heard of Powers. Why would I believe you had never heard of this? And the reason they haven't is because it was marketed for the domestic market. It was more directed towards the Irish market and not so much the international. So that's pretty much why nobody's heard of it. Did I miss anything else? Doodle the Dram is in. I seen you popping in. It's good to have you in, my friend. Just scanning. I'm scanning now to see if there was anything, to see where my name pops up. And if it pops up, then Fernando, oh yeah, fragrant drops. There's not enough fragrant drops in the market, in my opinion. Whiskey Novice from Black Fan. That bottle, second shelf down and third along on your shelves, Edward, Caledonia. Spot it. Blurry background as a case in point. Fugly bottle and label, but very distinctive. Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's funny though, because I weirdly I do quite like it. It's probably just the fact that it's me calling on my Scottish heritage again, and the fact that the saltire's on there, and it just there's something coarse about it, as we would say around here, curse. It's just curse looking, and the fact that it is Dougie MacLean and it is the Caledonia and all that there. There's something about it that, but this is yet again. This is our eyesight. This is our feel. Like the whiskey that's inside the bottles, we are all different. We all have our own opinions on what works and what doesn't. And in a lot of cases, yes, some of them are, we all will not disagree, but we'll certainly have different opinions. Craig Blair saying the best stopper ever was the Ailsa Bay with the granite disc from Ailsa Craig, I take it. I use that bottle as that bottle is my infinity. There's another, weirdly, that I agree with you that slate, the heavy, the Bushmills, the 21, the 16's wood, but the Bushmills 21 has that heavy sort of slate-like cork, and yeah, I like that as well. And I mean, yet again, here we are talking about, it's a stopper. It's something to stop the whiskey coming out of the bottle. But, if you can pull that stopper and feel weight, you sort of go, because it's something that even if you didn't know whiskey, there's a couple of things that we know. We know tactile, we know feel, we know weight, we know price. So when you suggest that something's a ridiculous price, everybody goes, oh, wow, it must be fantastic. Oh, if I won the lottery, I would buy that tomorrow. Why? It's a thing I hear daily. Tony Nelson's in. Good to see you, Tony. Hopefully see you in Glasgow this year. I don't know. Big Pour saying, Whiskey Novice, remind people Powers makes the best Irish coffees. You're right, Neil. Well, Powers your Irish coffee was built around Powers whiskey. Your hot toddy in Ireland was built around Powers whiskey. So this is the other one that I use whenever people say that they've never heard of Powers. And I pronounce it Powers. Honestly, in my own accent, it's Powers. But generally nobody knows what I'm talking about. What is this? What is this Powers he's talking about? Powers whiskey. And yes, your Irish coffee, you're 100% right. The Irish coffee was designed around Powers whiskey. Kyle Taylor, a new name to me. Welcome in, Kyle. That little whiskey was lovely. But it's leading me on to our next sense. And this is the one that I'm going to suggest, and maybe you'll disagree, but this is the one I'm going to suggest probably plays least into our purchasing, because that's what an awful lot, that's what I'm talking about tonight. This is what I was sort of aiming this at, was how, what part do our senses play into our purchasing? It's hearing. And the first thing I'm going to do, because I want to get something more in my glass, and I sort of went through my cabinets to quickly see if there was something I hadn't opened, and look what I came across. A little Cotswolds. It's one of the cast strength bourbon. Okay. It's hearing doesn't necessarily play a huge part into our purchasing, but, and I'm going to get a little cursed with my language here. No, I'll not. I was going to say something, but I'll not. Tell me this doesn't still excite you a little as a whiskey enthusiast. So I'm going to get very, very quiet here to do this. You maybe didn't hear that at all. Actually, that was obviously just the foil coming off. And I hope now that I actually get a good pop. But tell me this doesn't still give us a wee bit of excitement. Not bad, not bad. And probably not much of a glug here because it's just a straight neck ball. But not bad. That sound does get me, it does something. Oh, yes. So this is, I just noticed Ben saying hearing plays a big part in my purchasing. I hear Aquaviti banging on about something and I normally buy it. So this is the thing. This is what I was going to, so that's the little, there you go. I also do impressions. Whiskey novice, Irish whiskey is something I've not experienced yet, other than my dad's Tullamore Dew I stole with my pal when I was 15. I'm getting curious here. Doodle the Dram. It's a funny old one. Arnie, yeah, I knew your name. But it's Irish whiskey. I mean, yeah, we'll get you there. We'll get you there. This one, yeah, this is bourbon cask. I see, Peter Morris asking Cotswolds does bourbon now. So yeah, this is the bourbon cask. Full bourbon cask, 2,500 balls. We'll see how this goes on. It's tight. It's the first pour. It's the neck pour. We'll let that settle a moment. Maybe give it a drop of water in a moment, but we'll let it settle. Fruity, certainly fruity. Yeah, so there's that. That's a simple thing. That's something we do. Foil off, pop, pour. I mean, it wouldn't really affect us that much if we didn't have it. Without our hearing, without our sight to read, we would need to figure out another way to understand, be it sign language, be it Braille, whatever. We're relying on our senses. And at this point, we listen to each other. And I know it sounds simple because we read what each other says. We listen to what each other says. But I would suggest as enthusiasts, so your first-time buyer, you're new to the game, buys on recognition, buys on, good looking, as long as the price is right, etc., etc. There probably were other suggestions I could have brought out, but well, of course there were. But we then use our hearing, because what do we buy our whiskey based upon? Ben's already said it. Generally, each other's opinion. Generally, when when we start talking to each other, that's when we're talking about, I just noticed a comment, and I'm gonna pick up on it. Peter Morris, what bottle has the best glug? Then I don't know which is the best, but I certainly know that something with a bulb, usually on the neck, will. I always find glugs better because, especially a new bottle, it's the air getting into that bulb. And I mean, this is something that I know the stills have been used. I don't even know why I dragged this black bottle out. It's funny, like, I mean, still. Stills have been used for many a year to sort of, design your bottle around. And sometimes it just depends on the shape of your still, I suppose. I'm talking about listening to each other and reading what each other's saying. And there was something I seen earlier on. I swear I wanted to catch, and I probably missed it and can't remember what it was now. Whisky Novice, ordered. It's loving that you're sneaking so many Irish bottles on a traditional Scotch time slot. I'm doing a whiskey taste. I'm hosting a whiskey tasting for Dundalk Whiskey Club next Friday night, tomorrow week. Scotch whiskey in Ireland to Irish whiskey drinkers, and I think it's going to be a struggle because I know it, you know it, probably I've said it certainly enough. I love Irish whiskey, but I love Irish whiskey in the same way that I love world whiskey. I just prefer Scotch whiskey over all of them. I've yet to find a whiskey from around the world. Well, that's not true. I had whiskies from around the world that have been fantastic, but Scotch whiskey's the one that just, to me, repeatedly is more to my palate. Whiskey with Molly Ben saying that's a screw cap, isn't it? Well, it is. That was the black bottle. Obviously, you're not going to get much of a pop out of that, but the glug, to me, if there's a bulb, somebody said Pulteney, Pulteney, and yes, I suppose Pulteney is. Yeah, it's the same. And once again, based on their still shape. So many of them based on still shape. Glenmurray, I'm looking at over my shoulder here. Oh, this could creep off into another story altogether. But it's something we listen to each other. We suggest to each other what we should be purchasing. We don't have to. We don't, it's nobody's making us buy what the others suggest. But we, and praise be to God that people listen to me and reviewing. It's one of those things that's the point of reviewing, that you're getting your opinion out there. You're putting your opinion out. I'm only putting out my opinion. That's all that is. It shouldn't necessarily matter, but I think the whole idea is that over time, that once if you start to grow faith in somebody and their opinion, well, then it's very difficult not to believe their opinion or not to sort of line up with your opinion with them. And that is all down to this and this. Graham Horner's in. Good to see you. Got me on the big screen currently. Haven't topped the bottle fund in a while, Slunch. Graham, thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. I'll see you soon. Maybe even tomorrow. This is actually starting to show up. It's lacking a little something. I'm going to add the tiniest little drop of water and see if that's something that is lacking shows up. It's starting to fill out on the palate. This is the what was I drinking there? Just for anybody that just come in, it was a bottle that I hadn't opened, and it was take the foil off, pop, pour. Cotswolds, the cask strength, all bourbon cask. Yeah, I mean, if I would suggest, I would almost say that if we all stopped listening to each other and just started to go on our own way, it would sort of be, our shells would just be sort of cluttered full of. Yeah, maybe I should have started listening sooner, but it's one of those things that we listen to each other. We follow the trend. It's Is it herd mentality? I don't know. But it's easy when, as I said, we've listened and we've begun to trust. So that's what happens. I do not think that, and I'm when I say that I think that hearing plays the least part into what we buy, I still stand by that. But I'm just after saying that, I mean, we listen to each other and we pretty much are suggesting what we should buy. But we're not, I don't think we are sheep. I think we're basing it on our own history, shall I say, with distilleries and with certain brands. So yeah, I mean, to say that hearing plays a smaller part, I'm going to stick by that, but it's still very important in what we purchase. Yes. Little drop of water. It's gone a bit hot. It's gone a bit hot. It's quite young, I imagine. And it's Frank's saying, I agree that hearing plays a little part. As commented earlier on, I do not pay any attention to the glug. It's just one of those little novelties, Frank. It's just something we do, ain't it? So that moves us on then to probably, I'm going to suggest, the two most important, certainly to us whiskey enthusiasts, the most important senses, because were it not for our sense of smell and later taste, what's the point? And it could be suggested that they both play together, and they do play together. You know, certainly without our sense of smell, and I'll get to this in a moment, without our sense of smell, our sense of taste doesn't really work. But you almost need the two of them to work together. Alistair Phil saying, we learn from each other. When people recommend a whiskey, we enthusiasts ask why, and then we take a punt, and then take a punt or not. Sharing samples helps too. Agreed. Greg's Whiskey Guy says, I can listen to others, Jim, but at the end of the day, it almost all comes down to what we can find at our market. Of course, plus our own history leads us to pick things with our own intuition. Yeah, of course it does. I mean, the decision still comes down to us. I said it earlier on about the Glen Scotia. I've bypassed that already. However, if enough of you bang on about it and go, you've missed out, well, then I'll jump in there. A very good example recently was the Dornick mystery malts. Haven't touched either, I haven't bought either of them, haven't jumped in there, and it's simply because my money was being spent elsewhere. And did I feel like as if I missed out? Yeah, wee bit, but at the same time, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Put it like that. You know, it's the moment comes and goes. We still make our own decisions on what we buy. So once again, I think that's another reason why we can say that hearing, as much as I wouldn't like to to be without it, but it's still something that doesn't play a big part. Arnie says, I think it's okay to talk about beautiful sounds and not give us a wee tune on the mandolin this time. Nah, Arnie, it's not happening. I once again, probably if I was without my hearing, obviously this would stop, but I don't, would I care? Not much. Smell. Now, one of the first things that, once again, and this is once again something I hear regularly in the shop, I don't like Scotch whiskey. There you go. That's people come into the shop, we only sell Irish whiskey. Oh, that's great. That's all I want because I don't like Scotch whiskey. If they've been unlucky enough to get me on this day, okay then, my question is, which Scotch whiskey did you try that has written off 150 plus distilleries and a major booming business, which, the Scottish, let alone the UK economy, depends on what has written it off for you. Generally, would you believe it or not? And I would say that most of you probably would believe it. Laphroaig. It's nearly always Laphroaig. And to which my reply is, okay, so you have written off an entire industry based on one whiskey, and it's the first whiskey you tried. Yes, I don't like it. It smells like TCP. Now, if you're outside the UK, I don't know what I don't know if you know what TCP is, and I'd be glad. There's one of the reasons I'd be glad to get this over with tonight. This is TCP. It's a liquid antiseptic, openly available here, but as I say, I don't know how available it is around the world. This is Laphroaig. I'm not opening this. There's no bloody way I'm opening this again. One of the reasons I'd be glad to get this live stream over the night is because every time I come in to this room, I could smell this. And the reason it was still in the room was I knew I would forget to bring it in here tonight. So it's been in the room for about 4 days. And as soon as you open the door of this office of mine, all you can smell is bloody TCP. So I'd be glad to get this over with tonight. Sugar Kitty, Band-Aids and hate. Obviously, you don't like Laphroaig then. I know for a fact that this doesn't smell like this. So what do people mean? And this is it's all about this. It's all about the nose. What do they mean then whenever they say, I don't like it, it smells like TCP? Our olfactory memory plays a huge part in what we drink and what we do and what we talk about. Quickly, Frank's saying, never seen TCP, not here in the Netherlands, nor in the UK, to be fair, but lover of Laphroaig, of course. TCP was known to me as a youngster as Tom's cat piss. This is what Tom's cat's piss. Ben, okay, who was Tom? It's a very strong. Now the thing about it is, and you may, if I get in there close enough, and you can see the ingredients without it blurring, which it may, and the first thing that it says on there is phenol. So this is a phenolic smell, but and to say this is like iodine, it's a stronger smell than iodine, I would suggest. Laphroaig, it's all about the olfactory memory. We, as human beings, can't always suggest what things smell like. We can only suggest what we think we remember it smells like. And that's what happens here. It smells like TCP. It smells like Band-Aids. It smells like iodine. All of those medicinal things are all olfactory memories of something close. It's why we say when reviewing that you don't say that something smells like, the classic was grandma's apple pie, because you can't use a personal thing that nobody else knows. So, if nobody else knows what your grandma's apple pie was like, what's the point in using that as a tasting note? I'm going to throw in, I wasn't sure whether to put this in here. No, I was doing a tasting in work not that long ago for a group of, I really shouldn't do this. I will end up upsetting somebody I know I will. But sod it, I'm going to do it anyway because it's what I'm known for. A group of people, American visitors, and one of them, I mentioned this in the tasting. You don't say it tastes like grandma's apple pie or smells like grandma's apple pie because nobody else knows what your grandma's apple pie smells like. And this one lady put her hand up. Which doesn't very often happen. It was a case of, if you've got something to say, just say it. You don't need to put your hand up. It's not school. And she said, my grandma didn't make apple pie. Okay. And her husband went, she's Colombian. And just in a split second, you know the way sometimes you say something without thinking. I said, just cocaine then, and turned away to do something. Really shouldn't have done it. It was one of those things. In the moment, it was funny in my head, but the problem was that funny in my head came out of my mouth before I actually stopped myself. In that moment, I thought I had lost them. In that moment, I thought I could probably get sued. Thankfully, when I turned around, they were having a little laugh, and it was all forgotten about very quickly. So there you go. But no, it's very difficult to put our memories onto something that we don't, so the likes of this, I've actually been to the point where I have taken this very bottle with me on occasion, and pretty much said to the haters, right, tell me that smells like TCP. There's TCP. Smell that. Smell this, and tell me they both smell the same. And they all come back the same, and will say, no, you're right. You're 100% right. I still don't like it, but I'll not use that TCP thing anymore. Turf, this is another one. It's the way we talk about things. It's the way we discuss the thing. It smells like turf. It tastes like turf. No, it smells like smoke. It's if you've ever smelled a brick of turf, or licked or eaten, tried to eat for whatever reason you would do it, a brick of turf, it doesn't smell or taste like anything. It's dried earth. It's only whenever you set fire to it that this smell comes off. I think it's an incredibly glorious thing. I think our sense of smell is an incredibly glorious thing. And Lord knows this thing's big enough to pick up an awful lot. It's like hearing, it's like sight. A smell can trigger memories that only for us. It's such a personal thing. I've recently, literally in the last couple of days, a couple of different women in the shop talking about their sense of smell. And I've said it before, that if I struggle with a whiskey, if there's a note in a whiskey that I struggle to really put my finger on, I know it's there. I just can't remember I can't put the words to it. I just don't know. I literally just reach the glass to my wife and say, "What is that?" And she will nail it every time. And these women were saying the same thing in the shop, that exactly the same thing. The husband saying, she's got a great nose for this thing. I don't know why, but women tend to have and that's why there's so many of them in the industry, and so there's bloody should be, is the way I think about it. That was just a little sidebar there. I don't know where that was going, but that's something that I think if we take the time and sort of step aside sometimes and just slow down and think about it, it's something we rely on an awful lot, is our sense of smell. And smell and taste, once again, go hand in hand. However, there are elements to our palate which don't exist in our nose, in our sense of smell. I'm sort of glancing over that a little, but I'm leading to something. COVID cost a lot of people their sense of smell and taste for a while. I was blessed to a certain extent that it never really got me that bad. If I take the cold at all, which thankfully I don't do as often as I used to, like most people, it's natural. My sense of smell and taste are affected. I tend to suffer with my sinuses after a cold. If a cold lasts with me, a common cold lasts for a week, my sinuses will be in bother for a week and a half after it. My sense of smell won't fully return for a good, if I take a cold, it's a good 2.5 weeks before things are starting to get back to normal. COVID really, and I mean, a lot of us in here will remember the Scotch test dummies and Scott, how badly Scott was affected by it. So it was it was a tightener on people. I was panicking because at the end of the day, as I'm sure most reviewers were, it's you know, if I lose my sense of smell and taste, it's going to put me on my ass. It's one of the reasons now when I'm reviewing, I record a good 3 reviews in advance, because you just don't know when you're going to, you know, catch a cold or something. So it's good to have them in the bank and rely upon them. The reason that I'm saying Greg's saying something in the background, he's right. 80% of our taste comes from what we smell. Simple things, once again, you wouldn't believe, and I found myself doing it there. You wouldn't believe how many people, whenever you say to them, open your mouth slightly when you're nosing something, let the air through and see how much it changes. I do that when I'm doing tastings. People's minds are blown. You know, how incredible is that? By just opening your mouth, everything changes. We all learned this at one point, but it's amazing the difference it makes. The addition of water, what you do to your whiskey, how that's going to affect the smell and the taste of it. Experiment. It's definitely something, you know, more of us should be doing. The reason I'm saying about your smell not necessarily, your sense of smell not necessarily affecting everything that you taste, even in losing your sense of smell, you will not entirely lose your sense of taste. So here's me leading into taste. And it's not that you don't lose your sense of taste, but what you do, what you gain. And I'm going to talk about this. So whenever I do my reviews, you may or may have not noticed, and this was something that Ralphie was the first person I heard doing it. I don't know why, or whether it was because of that or what, but certainly whenever I was doing my WSETs, my Wines and Spirit Education Trust Awards, they mention this. They dig into this a little as well. And it's the map of the tongue. This is the map of the tongue. And it's so even losing your sense of smell, you don't lose this map of the tongue. It remains. So right, you'll see it there, right at the back of the tongue, bitter, then sour down the sides, sweet at the front, salty, you know, round the tip and up the sort of the edges, and then pretty much everything else is umami. It's one of those things that, even as I say, in losing your sense of smell, this doesn't go away. This remains. So if you taste something that's sharp, it's that remains. Now, the problem is that as we get older, a lot of this starts to die off. That's the slight concern, but not a damn thing we can do about that. What we tend to do, I'm convinced that one of the reasons that people tend to get into whiskey when they're slightly older is because they our taste buds are dying off a bit. And they're asking for stronger flavors, some bigger hits. So I'm convinced that that's one of the reasons why whiskey starts to play into our palates whenever we get a little older. So I generally start when I get to the palate element of my review, it's bittersweet. It's sweet and sour. It's salty. It's umami. And that's this map of the tongue guiding me there. I didn't realize just how big a part it played until, and this is something that proved this to me. And completely opened my eyes. This is what's called the census set. This was why I was saying earlier on that I didn't want to lift this file up. This is the little box in the middle of that table. This is it. Now, this was released by Egan's Whisky. Bet said he go to him. That was their erogenous zones next. You do not want to see my erogenous zones. Drew's saying that's a great graphic of the tasting zones of the tongue. It's something that plays in my head all the time, Drew. It's always in the background. What parts of the tongue is it firing off? Is it important to anybody? Probably not. It's important to me, and it's one of the reasons why I mentioned it. Those 5 parts of the map of the tongue: bitter, sour, salt, umami, sweet. Craig Blair has just come in, added to the bottle fund. Cheers, Jim. Need to bow out, so I'll catch the rest on replay. Great to see you doing some live streams again, and great topic. Might be in town tomorrow, and if so, I'll drop into the friend. Sláinte. Sláinte to you, Craig. Very much appreciate it, my friend. You know, I always enjoy your company. If you get by, it'd be great to see you. Thank you, my friend. Senses. This Senses set. It was developed by, and I've literally printed out. I have it sitting in front of me. The whiskey itself was sort of sourced by Rupert Egan. Rupert Egan is ancestor of the Egan whiskey group. They were bonders, bottlers, sort of came about in the boom of Irish whiskey around the late 1800s, I believe. Although they're probably, like most Irish whiskey people will tell you, they've been around for thousands of bloody years. Anyway, this was, now the thing about it is, Rupert himself, a Dub, I think he's a Dubliner, came into us in the shop one day, and he came in and he had this box in his hand, or a similar box, and an absolute gentleman, an absolute gentleman, lovely guy. And I got chatting to him about whiskey, and I just love chatting about whiskey, but you people are the people I like chatting about whiskey with, and Rupert is one of you people. He's you know, whiskey enthusiast. He knows whiskey, so it was great to get chatting to him. He developed this Senses set along with Damien Gray. So this is what got written down. Who's a chef, and Damien has a 2-star Michelin restaurant. Michelin 2-star chef in a restaurant, Leith restaurant in Dublin, tiny restaurant, I believe. And they developed this set. Now, this box, this great big set with those bottles that are in it, and those bottles are obviously designed to look like sort of medical, medical flasks. And every one of the little bottles of it, then the little samples, because this was a collector's set technically. So generally with those collector sets, it was a few £1,000 with those collector set. Nobody's going to open the big balls, so they gave away these little samples. This was the way their samples came in these test tubes. You know, nice. So he didn't like, there was something about the box, this box, that Rupert didn't like, so he had to trade it out for some reason. And he slid this box samples across the table to me, and he said, "They're for you." And I said, "Well, thank you. I'll put that into the museum or somewhere, you know." And he went, "No, I would rather you would take it and try it and let me know what you think of it." I wasn't complaining. I wasn't going to say no, so I took it, and it sat here for quite a while before I even looked at it. And then one evening, I just decided to open it. And what it is the 5 Senses. These bottles have all been individually handled. It's 23-year-old malt. It's 23-year-old Cooley malt. And I know at least one person in the chat here who likes their Cooley juice, and that's Greg's Whiskey Guide. I think Greg actually introduced me to Cooley at first. They make a quality malt. They genuinely do. So this is 23-year-old Cooley juice. All 5 of these have been finished differently to fire off the map of the tongue. I as somebody who sort of, I wouldn't say focused on such things, but certainly, you know, I certainly paid attention to such things. I thought to myself, this can't be. I mean, how do you do such a thing? This is alchemy. I don't know. I've tried to get hold of Rupert Egan since that point, and I'm struggling to get hold of him. But each one of these, so the bitter, for example, bitter stout cask finished, chocolate notes. That's the thing. Stout cask. When we talk about stout cask, we generally tend to think about chocolate notes is usually the thing that comes through with stout casks. Sour, in this case, mezcal from Oaxaca. So they're using to get those smoky sour notes in there. The salty one is ex Grand Champagne cognac cask from Godet. which is enhancing the saline qualities. The umami is developed in a cask of Col d'Orcia in Tuscany, delivering rich, savoury truffle and Sangiovese flavours. And the sweet is Madeira. And here's the thing. Now, the problem is, and look how murky this has got, that is properly murky. And there's no water added to that. That has just gone murky. Unfortunately, we don't have smell-o-vision or tasty telly, because I would love everybody to get involved in this. This is how much is left of these. This is all, I mean, all I had. It is mind-blowing, proper mind-blowing, because this is the better one, for example. Do you know what's happened with that? That's bizarre. I've never had that happen before. The reason that has gone murky, and it's cold and has lost its flavour, is I have a little fan blowing here. It's sitting right in front of the fan, and that has shot. It's gone. That's weird. I've never had that happen before. That's very bizarre. But here's the thing about them. Here's something I'm going to tell you, and I genuinely do wish everybody could get a chance to try this. They all smell the same. The first time I went through these and took my little samples of them the first time, was they all smelled the same. I couldn't get my head around it, but they all fire off each part of that map of the tongue in the order that they should. So that first one, and I've moved it out of the way of the fan now, and I'm hoping it comes back. I doubt it will. I would say that's it, gone. This sour. So this, where are you talking then? Let's break that down. So this, you're talking basically the sides of the palate, sides of the tongue. Once again, smells almost identical to the rest of them. Completely avoids every other part of the palate. Yes, you know it's there. Yes, it's not like as if it's just, but all of the sour, literally all of the sour part of the tongue there is just lighting up. So even without my sense of smell, I would still know that that's sour. So this is the part where the palate, yes, our sense of smell is hugely important, but our palate still needs to be working. And it's something that I could preach about this, but it's something I probably don't do myself, is trying to keep our palates healthy. How do you do that? I don't know, but I mean, this is the salt. Once again, smells exactly the same. This is the one that was finished in X Grand Champagne Cognac cask. Now, this is a difficult one because salty and sweet pretty much cover the same part of the map of the tongue, as you can see. Umami is the one that's weird because umami is pretty much everything else that isn't bitter, sour, sweet, or salty. So umami almost plays into them all. And it's one of those concepts. I remember once again watching a Ralphie video one time where he was talking about umami, and it's a very difficult concept to get one's head around. Because it was pretty much, I would suggest, nearly a technically a new thing. This is actually the umami. This is the Col d'Orcia, truffle and Sangiovese flavors. I don't know what Sangiovese flavors are. That's not pleasant. If that's what Sangiovese smells like, you can keep it, or tastes like. That's just weird. That literally, and yet again, avoids all of the bitter, sour, sweet, salty, and just covers that middle of the palate. Arnie saying, I noticed through whiskey how a lot of foods have become unpleasant to me, especially many sweets or fizzy drinks, and also citric acid stuff, because it quite literally blows the palate. Agreed. Agreed. And I mean, even chili, obviously. So while I remember, this was the other part that sort of fired the interest in making this live stream, by the way. And to a certain extent, I will go back now and address what I was saying at the start about what fired this off in the first place. How do I come about my reviews? How do I go about my tasting notes? How do I, come to decisions on whiskey, etc., etc.? This didn't hurt anymore. What I mean by that is that, thank you to Rupert Egan for giving me the opportunity to try this. I don't think I would ever have been given the opportunity to try 5 whiskies which tasted or smelled almost identical, but tasted totally different, just based on the map of the tongue. And that's pretty much what's happened there. It's very, very bizarre. As I say, I would love everybody to get a chance to try that. Drew's saying possibly there's a 6th taste of funky. That's the thing, Drew. But even yet again, if you think of the Campbelltown funk, what we talk about the Campbelltown funk, I've heard quite a few different versions of that as to what we consider funky, what we consider to be there's so many things that come into that. It's not just about the flavor. There's something. So if there was a 6th, it would be, and if there was even almost to a certain extent a 6th sense, we all see dead people, I know, but if there was, it's certainly in whiskey, it's the mouth feel. It's something that we also have to take into account. That's something that is that feel? Is that our sense of feel, or is that our sense of taste? Is that our sense of, so it's weird that when, mouth feel, we have to remember it as well. I'll simplify the tasting thing. It's not that difficult for me in the coming up with tasting notes. I'm just going to shuffle this out of the way to somewhere else, because I will drag this out. I said I wasn't going to, but this was the magic file from a few weeks ago. There's almost 300 tasting notes in here now. There's one. There's what one of them looks like. That's my tasting notes. It's so top of the sheet. Basically, will tell you what it is, what number the review was, when I recorded, when it was going to go out, what the ABV was there colour added, yes or no, and then I'll go nose, palate, finish. Then I'll add water. There'll be a line through it, and any sort of other notes I will have on the back. This is the thing to remember is this is a personal thing, and it's something that of my senses. Then, what do I use? What do I apply when coming up with tasting notes? I've said it many times tonight. Since that file started, my opinion on the whole thing has changed. In that, I probably, when that file started, did care more what the label looked like. I did probably care more what shape the bottle was, how tactile it was. That's the sort of thing that, that would have played into it. Nowadays, that doesn't seem to matter anymore. This, personal, once again, the bottles that we were flagging up earlier on. This is messing with my head. Why is that doing that? There we go. Reverse psychology. Yeah, it's eye-catching. Yeah, it's called Orchard House, and it does taste orchard fruity. This looks like a Tesco's label. This looks like a supermarket own brand. How can that play into what the whiskey tastes like and why it tastes like it tastes. Well, it doesn't. It's a bit of fun at that point. That's a sidebar. Once again, that's something that if I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about it for the crack. It's not, it doesn't come into to any of the choices that I made on that whiskey for reviewing purposes. Is it chill filtered? Is it natural color? That'll play into it. What was the ABV? That'll play into it. These to me are important things. So in my senses, what am I doing there? Well, I'm just reading them off the label. It's that simple. Although I'm quite happy, I far prefer the likes of this, where an awful lot of the information's on the label. I can't be bothered doing my homework if I can help it. That's the bit that sort of gets me about whiskey reviewing a wee bit, doing my own tasting notes, not about whiskey reviewing, but just doing my own tasting notes. If I have to do homework and substantial homework, well then it's more work for me, basically, put it like that. Woe is me. But it's just, if the information's there and I can use these to read it, happy days. That's much better. If it's not, I'll poke around and I'll get as much information as I can. Pardon me. At that point, these are sort of gone. Color of whiskey, that's something that an awful lot of people still pick up on. Natural color. Natural color. This, I don't, if it says natural color, that's all that matters to me, really. What difference really does it matter what color your whiskey is if it comes in a bottle like this or this? You don't know what color that whiskey is until you get it in your glass. Lord knows. I mean, so color to a certain extent. Yet again, it's a new sort of a newcomer thing that we hear people in the whiskey shop, talking about the color, but look at the color of it. And especially if you see one that we particularly know that there's been color added, and we're just, here's how much your color meant, that there's color added to that. That's not its natural color. So it's something that our eyes can deceive us, put it like that. That's what, the information's provided, and and what's there aren't necessarily going to line up. So at that point, when I'm reviewing whiskey, that's as much as my eyes play into it. I'm reading, I'm writing, I'm passing the information on, and it's more so for my own personal use, because that's all those tasting notes are. They're my own personal tasting notes for me. I'll pass on as much of that to you in my reviews as I can remember. Nosing, tasting, still the most important things to me. You've seen me tonight drinking out of a capita. When I'm enjoying whiskey, that came out wrong. When I want to just relax and enjoy a whiskey in the house, I drink out of a capita. When I'm reviewing, I use a Glencairn. Why? Well, it's because I've always used a Glencairn. To me, it only makes sense that it's to give all the whiskey a fair playing field. You use the same vessel to drink it out of every time. And that's just something, once again, it's a personal thing. Michael Henry, outside of whiskey enthusiast, color is huge. Big negative commercial impact for having lighter whiskies versus darker, as people in general prefer darker. I know. It shocks me. I could not believe how much people relied on color until I started working in the whiskey sales. It's because, as you said, that people expect whiskey to be brown. It's just it's whiskey's natural, it's whiskey's colour, which, as we all know here, is not true. I haven't had this in ages, so I'm going to have a wee drop of that. The wee Glenturret, just a wee drop in the bottom of the glass. Old Pirate Bourbon. Cheers, friends and community. Arr, that's a new name to me. Cheers. Arr. I don't know where that came from. Oh, dirty sherry. Still dirty. So yeah, I mean, I don't tend to talk about colour. If it's natural colour, it's natural colour. There. The bottle itself doesn't factor in really, unless I think there's something a little outstanding about it. Generally won't factor into what I think of the whiskey itself. The smell and taste, obviously, to me, are still the most important things, and that's when I'm reviewing a whiskey, it's about the smell and the taste. And I said it there a moment ago. I review out of a Glencairn glass because I just, I've always done so, and I think it's the fairest way to do it. When I say I'm drinking to relax, I'll drink out of a Capita, not a Glencairn. That's not always the truth, but it's just generally. Oh man, that umami. Do you know what I'm going to do? I always do this for the crack. Technically, I would have suggested, and I would say Michael Henry would probably think different. If I put all of these in the glass at the same time, does it mean that my tongue's all going to light up in one go? I probably shouldn't put the wee murky one in there. But hell, it didn't cost me anything. It's all in it's all in experimentation. Desi Vleeland's in. Good evening, Desi. Did you just come in for the quiz? We'll find out in a moment what that's doing. Smell, yes. Probably, I've said it before, I could live in the nose of some whiskies and never drink them. And it's just because I think some of them can, I find actually some whiskies have been a disappointment on the palate. It's strange. Greg said it earlier on that our sense of smell plays into 80% of what we taste. And yet, how many times have we nosed a whiskey and found these incredible notes going on, these incredible things going on, and you can't wait? A good whiskey to me begs to be drunk. And there's something, not here, but there's something which just doesn't translate over. Something in the nose, and generally it's more than one thing, doesn't play into the palate, doesn't show up in the palate, is lost in translation. So as much as our sense of smell is required for our palate to work, to function properly, sometimes it just, it's the whiskey itself. It's an incredible thing, and that's one of the great things about it. Here to see Donner Pass Tim is in as well. So good to see you in, Tim. Gerben Blocker, missed you earlier on. And here's the other thing that plays into all my reviews. Finish. A complete whiskey, to me, good smell, good palate, good finish. That's a complete whiskey. In my opinion, they're few and far between. There's not as many of them out there as I would like. Steve Risk is in from Safety Bay. Ooh, I want to live there. I like the sounds of that. I'm not a risk taker. Western Australia. Safety Bay. This is the Glenturret 12-year-old, still fantastic. And the thing about it is, too, that I mentioned it earlier, drop of water in there is going to change that up. What did I see there? Arlie saying, colour is still a big part of the magic. A talking point, where we go, a talking point in the forensics, and certainly excitement. Like the giggle about a pink port cask or the beautiful paleness of a refill. Once again, we mentioned it earlier on that, you know, as enthusiasts too, I actually said it, that's what it was. I said it earlier on this. We were a demanding lot. And, you know, it's one of those things that we get to that point where, you know, I want my whiskey to come in a second fill hogshead, because I don't want the wood to have all that effect. I don't want that's just us as enthusiasts. You know, we pay our money. We expect, to a certain extent, to get what we want. It's, you know, we are a demanding lot, but, you know, it's something we learn as we go along. Greg saying, yep, usually exceptional finish is what makes my favorite distillery also my favorite distillery, based on 90% of what I tried from it. A good finish tends to get forgotten about. I am convinced that good finishes in whiskey get forgotten about. And what's a good finish for me isn't necessarily a good finish for everybody else. A good finish for me, this is it's the smooth whiskey thing. Once again, there's an awful lot of my experiences in the shop that are playing into this tonight. And you've no idea how many times you hear, I want a smooth whiskey. Well, what's a smooth whiskey? And the thing about it is, and I'm repeating myself in this one, is that when we're asked for a smooth whiskey, it's, you want something that doesn't burn you on the way down, don't you? Yes, that's what we want. We want something that's not going to burn us on the way down. And I'm saying, well, look, it's this is ethanol. It's in its nature to burn us on the way down. You know, it can't help itself. So what I tell people is, think about what else burns you on the way down. Clove, cinnamon, chili, pepper, white peppers, black pepper. Is it, you know, and the list of things that burn but also have flavor. Add that into your tasting development and what you enjoy about tasting, and all of a sudden the world opens up to you. You are going to be so glad to hear who has just joined in the background. It's actually, I was panicking whether he was going to actually make it or not. But Menno is in. Yes, he is. So give us a thumbs up, Menno, if you think you're ready to go. There we are.
Oh.
Good evening.
Good evening. Just got home.
Were you gigging
Still
tonight,
sweaty.
or were you?
No, we're hosting free concerts, small concerts, and so we've got a very small crew. So I'm helping setting everything up, helping the band get settled, and then cleaning up when everything's done and dusted again. So long days.
Excellent. Well, listen, thank you for joining us, my friend. It's you know, I know you were getting your pan knocked in, as we would say. So, you know, it's very, very much appreciated. It really is. I'm glad to see you, because I've went to the effort of making my little A, B's and C's.
Great.
I haven't looked at the quiz. I genuinely haven't. I'm going to take part, and I will probably not do very well, because I rarely do. But that doesn't matter. It's all in the name of fun. Menno, when you are ready, because I don't want to keep you too long. You've been busy enough today.
No.
And everybody else is ready. I think everybody else is ready. Gav's Drams. Sorry, I missed you earlier on, Gav. I just want to say that's why I remember. Gav, I know it maybe didn't necessarily originate with you. It was the one distillery challenge. And then it certainly made its way to me from Stuart Whiskey Whims, and I was going to add it into this live stream tonight, but I didn't. I thought that was cheeky. It was nothing to do with what we were talking about. So I will, at some point, for anybody that's been paying attention, talk about my one distillery at some other point. Menno, knock yourself out. Go ahead.
I think I've shared that. file.
Yep,
All I
it's in
need for
here.
you. Yep. Oh, I need you to. Yep.
There we go.
Okay. Great. Excellent. So I didn't saw you do anything because I just got in. But I tried to build a quiz around the theme of sense and taste and whatnot. And some of these questions I have recycled. I'll be honest with you, as they have appeared on previous quizzes at the end, but that was a long time ago, and they were too good to pass up on. So if you have been really paying attention to my torturous quizzes, then a few questions might seem familiar. Okay,
Well,
here we
that might
go.
excite a few people because they maybe get the, you know. I did notice this, I must admit. I did actually, I had to check and see whether it was working or not, and I seen this bit. Fantastic. Well done.
Okay, then question 1. Why would you enjoy your favorite whiskey less when traveling by plane? Is it because A, the altitude makes you drunk quicker? Is it B, the change in air pressure and humidity decreases our sense of smell and taste? Or is it C, the closed air conditioning circuit negatively impacts the natural oxidization process in your glass and closes the whiskey as a consequence? A horrible question to start with, probably.
Do you know, straight away, even before you read out the answers, I had a rough idea of what I would have suggested, what I would have said. I could be completely wrong, but I'm going to stick with the answer I picked anyway because it was what I thought.
Okay, and that will be A, B, or C?
That would be B. I always had it in my head that the change of air pressure inside our heads is bound to affect the sense of smell and taste, but I could be wrong. And I don't want to lead anybody, although I would suggest that they're probably leading me a little as well.
A lot of B's, and you're 1 for 1, Jim. Well done. Well done. It is the change in air pressure and humidity that decreases our sense of smell and taste. So quickly onwards to question 2. Which company used to have the slogan or baseline, "It's the wood that makes the whiskey"? Is it A, Gordon and MacPhail, B, Edrington, or C, Jack Daniels or Brown-Forman?
That's a more interesting one. Which company used to have a slogan baseline?
It's the wood that makes the whiskey. Used to be. I think they
go ahead.
Quit. I think they quit using that pre-COVID, 2018, 2019, thereabout, but they've used it for quite a few years during the 2010 to 2018 or so.
I'm seeing a lot of A's being offered up. Do you know the one that I would almost have went down the path, and I would have almost have said Jack Daniels. I know, obviously, when you look at the likes of Blackened and stuff by Metallica, you know that they were blasting the music into the warehouses to try and sort of agitate the wood. Although I don't think that has anything to do with it. But I weirdly, and I've seen a few bees flying up here as well. I don't know why, but Edrington was the one that whenever they come up at first, I sort of thought, well, it rings a bell, but maybe I'm wrong. So, but either way, I'm going to go B.
I'm going to go B. A, B, B, C.
There's a lot of A's and B's popping up in the chat.
You're sticking with your guns and going
I'm
for
going to stick with B and go Edrington.
Okay. Unfortunately, it was indeed Gordon and MacPhail. It was A. So 1 for 2, not too bad. Nothing bad happened yet. Question 3. On average, each person has about 9,000 taste buds with a multitude of taste receptors on each. 80% of these are programmed to pick up mainly which flavor? Is it A, salt, B, sweet, or C, bitter? So the majority of what
I was showing. Have you seen any of what I was talking about?
No. I literally just came in.
So I had a map of the tongue up for most of what I was talking about in the latter half of the live stream. So I know where I'm going, and I'm not going to lead anybody. But most of the people that are in the chat have been looking at that map, and the one that seemed to cover most of the tongue was bitter. So I'm going to go C, because salt covers the front of the tongue, as does sweet at the tip of the tongue. So I'm going to go C.
C for bitter, and you're absolutely correct. Do you have any idea why that is?
Well, say I've no idea why, but I'm just going to quickly. That's the map of the tongue. And bitter obviously was the one then that seems to be covering the most of that. Although when you look at that, salty's covering quite a bit as well. But I have no idea why.
Evolutionary. It's a
right.
bitter taste often warned us for poison.
Oh. There you go. Happy days. And Roy was in there, poison. So.
Yep. This too was a recycled question. Question 4. Diageo sensory experts use 16 objective descriptions to explain and describe the character of new make spirit. But which one of these is not on that list? This is a banana skin. Is it A, grassy, B, green, or C, floral?
I genuinely think that the banana skin there is green, in that I would imagine they do use it. It's one that we wouldn't think of. And Diageo, I think of how many Speyside distilleries are Diageo, and that floral is a term that I generally use when talking about Speyside. So based on all of that BS, I'm going to say A, although everybody else seems to be going with B, as far as I can see.
I see. I'm not making friends in the chat.
It's too late for that, man.
Yeah.
It's too late for that.
Well, it is indeed. The banana skin was that indeed B, green, is on the list. And I hate to tell you that A, grassy, is also on the list. They don't use floral, weirdly. I was quite surprised to find out that one.
I'm actually glad, though, that green is used. It's something that I know we talk about it regularly in here, about smelling and tasting in colour, but it's something that I didn't even realise was happening to me until I found myself writing down tasting notes, and I was saying red, blue, green, and I was like, if anybody else was reading this, they would wonder what the hell I'm talking about. What does yellow taste like? Tastes like bananas.
Yeah, and green is a note I often get when I'm tasting something with rye in the mix. And I think, Mark, what will be particularly pleased that green is actually a tasting note. I don't know if he's in tonight, but speaking of Mark, question 5. What does this logo from what whiskey represent?
Well, I made this clear this week that it's a woman's...
No, I behaved myself. Is it A, a starch molecule? Is it B, a taste bud? Or is it C, a fatty acid? What does this logo from what whiskey represent? A, B, or
I know
C?
this because he told me himself. And I hope I'm right, because I hope I was listening whenever he was telling me.
I think it's quite interesting. Yes.
And I mean,
a lot of B's in the chat as well, and a B from you, and in line with the theme of tonight, it is indeed absolutely a taste, but it's quite stylish. Probably looks better really, like this than it does in real life.
Mark did a tasting for us whenever myself and Ben and Lee J went to Campbelltown, and Mark invited us in to what whiskies and did as a taste, and I couldn't. I mean, blown away. The guy was an absolute star, and you know, but it was he was talking about the label, and there was me thinking it was a medical journal of women's person, and he laughed. And he says, "Well, you're not the first person to say it." Like.
Okay, then how are you doing? I think you're 3 for 5 or something. Okay,
3 out of 5.
Pretty. Okay, then question 6. In the early 20th century, malt distilleries tried to ban grain distilleries from calling their spirit whiskey. And grain distillery Cambus reacted to this claim how? Did they A, started releasing single grain whiskey to prove the quality of their product? Was it B, by filing a similar lawsuit against the malt distilleries, or by C, paying farmers to switch to producing any grain but barley?
I feel like as if I should know this. I certainly know that whenever the obviously the grain stills, etc., whenever Guinness Coffee was trying to introduce them, that the Irish producers wouldn't adopt it because as they were saying this wasn't whiskey that they were producing, this was a totally different product. And I remember this being discussed, but I was certainly leaning toward 2 out of the 3 there. And that would be either B or C. And I always do the same thing and tend to look towards I'm going to actually go against what everybody else is saying. I don't think anybody else is saying it. I'm actually going to go C.
By paying farmers to switch to producing any grain but barley.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll regret it. But...
Yeah. You'll regret it.
Well, B was the one that I wanted to sort of lean toward, but I don't know. It felt like as if, I don't know. So obviously I'm wrong.
No, the interesting thing is that indeed they released a single grain whiskey to prove the quality of their product. So the earliest single grain whiskey is probably from the early 1900s, which is quite interesting.
So the answer was actually fairly simple at the end of the day. It was sometimes the obvious ones that exist.
Okay, quickly to question 7 then. And this one's for you, Jim. People who don't like virgin oak matured whiskey often blame it on the tannins, but which of these characteristics of tannins is actually true? Is it that A, in trees and plants, tannins act as a defense mechanism against predation, like a sort of natural pesticide? Is it B, that tannins in red wine help prolong the shelf life? Or is it C, combined with sugary dishes, the astringent character of tannins is accentuated?
Yeah, once again, I should probably, because I do not necessarily, I'm starting to come around to virgin oak a bit more, but still not a fan.
If it's done properly, it can be brilliant, but I agree, it can quickly turn bitter and oaky.
I'm sort of going with the crowd, but it was the one that I was leaning towards myself. Is A. In trees, plants, tannins act as a defense mechanism against predation.
Well, I can tell you, you're absolutely correct, but also they help prolong the shelf life and they bring out and combined with sugary, it turns astringent. Yeah, that's a freebie. That's the freebie. Everyone deserves a freebie.
Well, you see, I was excited for a moment. Now you've taken it away from me again.
Nah. Are you gonna pass mark then? I think so. 4. Okay. We'll get there. Back in 2018, the Whiskey Exchange and Specialty Drinks introduced the 1920 Blender's Glass, which was specifically designed to get more aromas out of delicate or older whiskies. And they collaborated on this glass, on the creation of this glass, with which legend of the industry? Is it A, Angus MacRail? Is it B, Richard Patterson? Or is it C, Charles MacLean?
There are people in the room, and yet again, the first answer I've seen coming up, which was where I was leaning, was Angus. I'm sure there are people that'll fly in there knowing this answer, but I'm going to go. I already see a few saying it. I'm going to say A as well.
Yes. Well done then, because the banana skin was Richard Patterson being the nose, so that will be an obvious answer. But it was indeed Angus who collaborated with them to create the 1920 Blender's Glass. I actually got one, and it's surprising the effect it can have on some whiskies.
Right. What was different about it?
It brings out different aromas. You can pick up, it's more nuanced, generally speaking, compared to when you use a Glencairn or even a Copita sometimes. Doesn't necessarily always make it a better experience, but it really makes it a different experience. But overall, I don't think my nose is refined enough to pick up all the super nuances. someone who actually knows what he's talking about would. So yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, second to last question. Why do women, generally speaking, have a better sense of smell than men? Is it because A, their nasal cavity is slightly bigger? Is it B, there is actually no difference between men and women when talking sense of smell? Or is it C, it's probably something to do with women having about 50% more brain cells in the area of the brain that receives and processes aromas and odors?
That's such a good question, because we were discussing this earlier on, and I said about the fact that whenever if I was struggling with a tasting note, I just reached my glass to my wife and say, what am I missing there? There's something, and she'll just pick it out like that. And it's the fact that you've asked the question. Now I will actually know the answer whenever it comes to telling other people. And Desi Fleeland, I'm going to follow Desi Fleeland in this, because just because
you don't argue with someone
exactly,
like that.
well, exactly. I wouldn't argue with Desi in the first place, but I mean, the fact that she's saying is because women have about 50% more brain cells. In general, I think she's saying, but
no, just in that particular area of the brain. Well, Jim, you're absolutely correct. It is indeed C. They're not 100% sure that's the reason, but it's been observed that indeed women have 50% more brain cells in the area that receives and processes aromas. So
fantastic.
C, well done.
Before you get into the last one, let's see how everybody's doing quickly. I'm seeing
yes.
There's going to be. I'm surprised actually that there's not more on the higher ones, because I noticed it earlier on that there's a lot of 6 out of 8s going back. Kyle Taylor was 6 out of 8. Desi at that point 6 out of 8. Greg's Whiskey Guide 6 out of 8. Rob Smith 5 out of 8 at the time. So was I. I'm now 6 out of 9. So I'm happy with that.
Rick Johnson a 7 out of 9. He's not crying now, I think.
Yeah, I seen that comment earlier on. 8 out of 9 for Ben, 6 out of 9 for Rick Taylor,
Roy,
7
on 8 out of 9 again.
7 out of 9 for Desi Leland, 7 out of 9 for Greg's Whiskey Guide, Tobias 7 out of 9.
Alistair McPhail on a 9 for 9, so we're totally rooting for Alistair to get a 10 for 10 tonight.
Yep, right, go ahead then, hit us with it.
Okay, how many different colored taste buds does what whiskey use to categorize their bottlings? So is it A, about as much as there are operational Glen distilleries in Scotland? Is it B, about as much as there are Scottish malt distilleries with a capacity of less than 100,000 litres per annum? Or is it C, about as much as there are Scottish malt distilleries with a capacity of over 10 million litres per annum? So people who don't know this, Mark, what whiskies use different colored taste buds to describe different flavors and aroma he picks up in a whiskey. The long and short of it.
I don't think he actually has that many. From memory, that we discussed this with him, and I thought there only were about 5 or 6. So that that means very little here. If you'd have just put up the options of, is it this amount, that amount, or the other amount, but it's the way you throw these ones in. I forgot. It's so long since I've been in one of your quizzes that I'd forgotten how wily you are.
I'll take it as a compliment.
No, I've always meant about as much as I don't think it would be A, for the simple fact that about as much as there are operational blend distilleries, well, there's got to be almost hundreds of them by now. About as much as there are Scottish malt distilleries with a capacity less than 100. You see, there's not going to be that many of them. But as much as there are Scottish malt distilleries with a capacity of more than 10 million, I'm going to go B. And I see a few others, but not everybody. But I'm going to go B, because there couldn't be that many Scottish malt distilleries with a capacity of less than 100,000.
I'm just trying to see if I can pick up Alistair's answer. I don't think I've spotted it. I might have missed it. Oh, Jim's gone. I'll just wait for him to return.
Or
Jim. Oh, you're back. You dropped out for a second.
I touched the button of my mouse and it made me disappear. There was a panic for a moment.
So your final answer was
B, and I see Alistair saying B as well. So he's the one that's in with a chance.
Well, looks like nobody's going home with a perfect score tonight. It's actually 9 times 3 different colored taste, but so 27, and there are 26 Glen distilleries.
There you go. Roy actually said it in there. He said A about 26 or so. So there you go. So well done, Nano. I would like to say well done to everybody else, but I'm going to say well done to everybody else, but not
well
10
done
out
you.
of 10.
Well
6
done
out
you.
of 10. 6.
Brilliant.
I'm happy enough for that, to be honest with you. But you know, classic as usual, Menno. I mean, well done, buddy. Well done. I mean, it's questions like that just throw doubt into our minds. And so Roy's whatever he's got, his dancer, he's happy. But no, that was a builder. 9, yeah, Roy got a 9. No, class, Menno, and thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing something.
Always my pleasure.
So, you know, it's weird. You said it yourself when you were texting me that, you know, the fact that you were able to find stuff that was related to the senses. So it's always think it's incredible what you can do there and how you're able to focus them on such a thing. So,
cheers.
Thank you, my friend. Stay in the background. I'll speak to you in a minute if you don't mind.
Great.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Yes, thank you, Domenico. That was a panic there. I literally touched something with my thumb on the mouse, and when I disappeared off screen, so late in the game. I thought I'd managed to blow everything there. Just to get back to it, this is the blend of the 5 samples that it was on earlier on. And does it fire off everything on the tongue? To a certain extent, yes. But weirdly, it seems to be depending on how much was in each glass. The umami thing earlier on, and it just proves once again that good blending and getting it right. So the umami earlier on was getting to the point of horrid and almost undrinkable, whereas now it's back to that's been balanced out, and the sour and the bitter are balancing in, and you know, so it's amazing that was doing all of that thing earlier on and firing off all of those things in my tongue, and now it has balanced itself all out. Our senses, we do rely on them. Of course we do. Sometimes I don't think we even realize how much we're relying on our senses for everything that we're doing. And we would be quite lost without them. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Next week, First Fill Whiskey will be here filling in. As I said earlier on, he'll do next week. Roy will be back the following week. And everything will reset itself. It was good to have so many of you in. My friend Richard and you in Canada coming in at this hour, Richard, and saying Jim and shouting my name like as if the list. Thank you for coming in all the same, buddy. He's going to watch the replay. Thank you all for joining me. I'd like to thank Roy once again for inviting me to do this. It was a joy for me. It was a joy. I actually felt like as if I put some things to bed tonight. The likes of, as I said at the start of the live stream, that my friend Tony had asked me about how I go about my reviewing. Done that. I wanted to get that kit, that, you know, the 5, the map of the tongue. It does play very much into what way I look at whiskey. I don't know what happened there. There's me losing my voice at this time of the game. It's an old excuse, but it gets me out. So I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you very much for joining me. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. And first fill next week, Roy after that. Rely on your senses. Here's to your good health. That's pretty much where this one's going. Cheers. Good night.